Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Halo Chronicle. Today's episode is part 7 in my First Strike series. If you've not seen the previous parts of this series, I highly recommend you check those out first. Links will be provided in the description below. Last week, we discussed the Battle of Planet Reach. The UNSC's last major stronghold was attacked by a fleet of over 300 Covenant vessels. During the invasion, two major crises would occur. First, an ONI stealth ship's navigational data was compromised, leaving an opening for the Covenant to steal all of the coordinates of the remaining human colonies, including Earth. The second major crisis was on the planet's surface itself. The generators powering Reach's orbital supermat guns were under siege by Covenant forces who made their way through the UNSC's blockade. In a desperate effort to turn the tide of the battle, the Master Chief would split his Spartans into two teams. Blue Team would go to Gamma Station to destroy the ONI stealth ship's navigational data. Red Team would go to Reach's surface and attempt to defend the orbital generators. Blue Team would reach Gamma Station and succeed in destroying the navigational data, but it came at a steep price. Spartan James was sent spinning into space and was never seen again. Spartan Linda would be ambushed by the Covenant and would be so badly injured that she would be declared clinically dead. Red Team suffered many tragedies of their own. While en route to the planet's surface, their Pelican was severely damaged, and they would be forced to bail out of the aircraft at a high altitude. Several Spartans would die after impacting with the planet's surface. The surviving members of Red Team were severely injured, but they managed to regroup and attempt to repel the Covenant forces attempting to take out the orbital generators. Their efforts would ultimately fail, and they would be overrun by Covenant forces. The Master Chief would return to the Pillar of Autumn, where he was informed of Red Team's failure and Reach's imminent demise. Captain Keyes would order the ship to flee in an effort to proceed with Operation Red Flag. Cortana would chart a course to an unknown system that was dictated by the Cole Protocol. These coordinates were supposed to be random, but they were not. Cortana discovered these coordinates from images from one of Master Chief's previous missions on Sigma Octanus 4. Upon arrival, the Pillar of Autumn would be greeted by Covenant forces that had followed them through slipspace and a ring-shaped installation. That completes the recap of last week's episode. Let's jump into today's video. After fleeing the Battle of Reach, the Pillar of Autumn would make a jump into slipspace. It would then travel through slipspace for several weeks. In that time, several technicians and engineers would remain active to work on repairs. Towards the end of their journey, Cortana would wake Captain Keyes, who ordered her to wake all of the bridge crew. The command team would reach the bridge just as the Pillar of Autumn would emerge in normal space. Upon entering normal space, the Pillar of Autumn would come under siege. Several Covenant ships had followed the UNSC vessel through slipspace. Using their superior slipspace navigational technology, the Covenant was able to track the Pillar of Autumn's movement and emerge in normal space slightly ahead of the UNSC vessel. They immediately began attacking the ship. The Covenant forces quickly disabled the Autumn's primary weapon, the Mac gun. The Covenant would then begin to board the Pillar of Autumn via the ship's emergency lifeboat ports. Desperate to keep the boarding Covenant forces at bay, Captain Keyes would order the Pillar of Autumn's engineers to wake the Master Chief. After a quick thaw and a systems check, the Master Chief was sent to the bridge to be briefed by the captain directly. Upon reaching the bridge, Captain Keyes would brief the Master Chief on the severity of the situation. He would also reveal the ring-shaped installation that Cortana found in orbit around the gas giant known as Threshold. Keyes gave the order to abandon ship. He ordered that all crew stationed on the Autumn board lifeboats and land on the ring-shaped installation. He then tasked the Master Chief with taking and getting Cortana off the ship. His job would be to protect her at all costs. He then stated that he would plot a course for the Pillar of Autumn to crash on the ring's surface. He handed the Master Chief a pistol and sent him on his way. The Master Chief went to work quickly and began cutting his way through the Covenant forces. On his way to the lifeboat bays, the Chief would come across a high-ranking Covenant elite named Zuka Zamami. The chief would engage in a firefight with the Covenant warrior. Zuka would be shot in the head. The bullet would not be fatal, but it would incapacitate this elite. The bullet would be lodged between Zuka's helmet and the side of his head. A small group of grunts would stumble over the downed elite. This group was led by a grunt named Yayap. Yayap came to the conclusion that this elite was their ticket off of the Pillar of Autumn. He believed that he could use this downed elite as an excuse to leave the battlefield and save the rest of his platoon. The cowardly grunts recovered the downed elite and fled the UNSC vessel. The Pillar of Autumn's engine and reactor room was fiercely defended by a group of ODSTs led by Major Silva, who served as Captain Key's second-in-command. Silva was flanked by Lieutenant Melissa McKay. The ODSTs dominated the Covenant forces and made sure that they didn't overtake the engine room. After they were given the order to abandon ship by Captain Keyes, the ODSTs would board their coffins and drop feet first into hell. They would land on the ring's surface and begin coordinating the UNSC's military operations. The Master Chief cleared the Autumn room by room until he reached a dead end. With Cortana's help, the Chief was given directions on how to travel through the ship's maintenance shafts. This allowed him to flank the enemy Covenant forces. After several trips through the maintenance hatches, the Master Chief reached the last lifeboat. He and a small group of Marines were attempting to board and leave the sinking ship. The last Marine fell and believed that he would miss the boat, but the Chief did not let it happen. Chief picked up the last soldier and threw him into the lifeboat. He then boarded and instructed the pilot to punch it. The lifeboat would breach the ring's atmosphere and head towards the surface. While en route to the surface, the lifeboat's air brakes would fail and it would crash onto the ring. The Master Chief and Cortana would be the only survivors. After leaving the wreckage of the lifeboat, the Master Chief would take in the scenery. He would find that the lifeboat landed in a deep valley. He would then look up at the ring-shaped installation arcing overhead like a bridge. Cortana would tap into the Covenant's BattleNet and gather intelligence about this installation. She would find that the Covenant called this installation Halo. Before he could explore more, the Chief would spot a Covenant dropship making its way through the valley. The Chief attempted to stealthily evade the incoming enemy, but in order to escape the valley, he would have to engage these enemy forces. He would take out the Covenant forces guarding the valley's exit with the weapons he salvaged from the lifeboat. He would then find a construct that was shooting a light into the sky. There were several squads of UNSC Marines taking shelter in this construct. It was also under attack. The Master Chief moved quickly to assist the Marine forces. He helped defend them from several waves of Covenant attacks. After fending off waves of Covenant forces, Chief would find that Sergeant Johnson was among the Marines that were guarding this structure. Just as the Master Chief and the Marines would regroup following the attack, they would receive a broadcast from a nearby UNSC Pelican. This Pelican would be controlled by a UNSC pilot with the call sign Foehammer. She would swing by and pick up the Marines. Just as she came in for a landing, several more UNSC life pods would crash through the atmosphere onto the installation. The Master Chief would take Foehammer's Warthog and go search for survivors. Meanwhile, on another area of Alpha Halo, the ODST soldiers and Major Silva would land and begin their operations. They decided that if the UNSC forces were going to survive, they would need to establish a base of operations. Major Silva identified the perfect location atop a butte. The only problem was that this butte was controlled by the Covenant. Major Silva ordered all of his forces to engage the Covenant and take control of the butte. The operation would be led by Lieutenant Melissa McKay. After a short struggle, this operation was a success. This site would be known as Alpha Base. After rescuing 3 squads of Marines, the Master Chief would summon Foehammer one final time. The Chief would board her Pelican and they would make their way to Alpha Base. During their operation, the Master Chief and Cortana would learn through the Covenant BattleNet that Captain Keyes had escaped the Pillar of Autumn and was captured by Covenant forces. He was taken to a Covenant ship called the Truth and Reconciliation. That is going to complete today's episode. Before I close things out, let's talk about some interesting bits of lore tied to today's episode. Alpha Halo being placed in the orbit of a gas giant was not done by mistake. In fact, each Halo was assigned to a parking orbit around a gas giant. This was done because there would be no life forms on these planets that could find or interfere with these Halo installations. Captain Keyes is a certified legend. After plotting a course for the Pillar of Autumn to crash onto the surface of Alpha Halo, he and his staff would then board the last lifeboat. While en route to the Halo's surface, Captain Keyes noticed something strange. He asked the Marine if he could borrow his pistol. Keyes promptly took the pistol and shot a camouflaged elite point blank in the head. He would then hand the weapon back and state that the pistol was in perfect working order. The Pillar of Autumn was so advanced with its refit that it actually housed 2 artificial intelligences. The first, of course, was Cortana, but the second would be activated and brought to the surface of the Halo. It would help coordinate the UNSC forces on the Halo. Its name was Wellesley. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Next week's episode will cover the Master Chief's mission to recover Captain Keyes. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.